It's 2024, and if you want to get your shit together in your business, then you need to mind the gap. Right now, you can grab an early bird bonus when you enroll in my digital bookkeeping course, Mind the Gap. Visit my link tree in the show notes to enroll, and you'll be invited to book a one-on-one virtual call with me. We're going to strategize and set you on the path for financial success in your business. This call is free for new students of Mind the Gap, and it's currently a $500 value. The course will be available starting in May 2024, but don't wait to grab your free bonus and get into our online community. Everyone who enrolls in Mind the Gap right now will receive an exclusive invitation to join our virtual community. I'm going live in there twice a month to teach you valuable financial content, answer your business questions, we're co-working together, and you'll be able to network with other entrepreneurs who are doing this work too. All of my clients are there already, and we're so excited to meet you. Visit the show notes to get enrolled in Mind the Gap today. All right, welcome everybody to another episode of Money Through Ease. I have a guest with me today. It's Cortney Kaveh from Northwest Money Coaching. Hi, Cortney. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, because we have a little bit of overlap going on between what I do for my business and what you do. So tell us who you are.
Yes, I was so excited to chat today and just get to talk to your audience. Because I know they'll get a lot of value us having such a crossover. So I'm very much in the world of daily money management with business finances. So all those habits and behaviors that contribute to our profitability or not, right?
Yeah.
Making sure that business owners are, and I know you do this too, not commingling, they're paying themselves first, they're setting aside money for taxes, doing all the things that will help them keep loving their business, because a lot of times our businesses start out as a dream and it's our passion, and then we get going and there's all these things that we have to do, and if we aren't set up with a firm foundation, it can quickly become something that burns us out. So I'm super passionate about helping business owners not burn out, keep loving their business, and do it through effective daily money management.
Excellent. Yeah, I don't do a lot of like day-to-day money management. The most that I do for my clients who hire me to do their bookkeeping for them is like monthly done for you, but like I also will provide like accounts receivable support and receipt management during the month. But people either come to me when they're established and they're hustling and they've got money coming in and they're just wild about, they're just totally eaten up with their business. Or I have people come to me in the very beginning stages of their business and they're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm not really making that much money. And so I don't really get anybody that falls in between.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so important as business owners to pay ourselves first. I have been in business for almost 2 years now, and I'm just getting to the point where I can like pay myself on a regular basis. Like
Mhm.
my cash flow was not supporting that for most of last year. Like it was okay, if I need to pay a bill, hopefully there's money in the business account that I can take out and then pay myself. So do you
Mhm.
find that there is that kind of time at the very beginning of your business where, some people don't have like savings, or they don't have a full-time job, or they quit their full-time job and they don't have like other funding to support their business and themselves. And so, it sometimes winds up being like a grind for a little bit. Is that your experience with your clients too?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, you start a business and it is a grind because you may be pressed on time, whether you
Mm.
were a stay-at-home mom and now you're a work-at-home mom and you're trying to find time to work on your business, or you're working a full-time job and now you're starting up this business and you reach a point where, oh my gosh, I can't keep doing this, working this many hours. It comes to that breaking point of like, when do I jump
Mm.
and just
Mm.
go all in on
Mm.
my side business and make it my full-time business? So yeah, it's
Yeah.
absolutely a grind in the beginning to get a new business off the ground for sure.
Yeah, and it's like, how do we know when is the right time? Sometimes you have a plan, sometimes you've got funding, sometimes the numbers make sense, but sometimes they don't. And you're put in that position where you make that decision anyways, because it's what you need to do for other areas of your life. And like you brought up, like many stay-at-home moms or women who are tasked with the child rearing in their families and like homemaking and taking care of the home and the kind of family economics of it all are like, well, I could squeeze in like a side gig, even though like child rearing, homemaking are all kind of full-time gigs already, and they want to support their family financially as well. So they're like, "Well, I'm at home, I could do something here." Tell us what it's like to work with those folks. What kind of like advice would you have to give, or what kind of journey does that look like for stay-at-home moms?
Well, that's exactly what I did. So I'm so glad you asked.
Mm,
When I first did all this, I was really passionate about helping other stay-at-home moms do this too, because
mm,
what I found myself in and what many other women find themselves in is, or dads who stay at home, right?
mhm,
Is sometimes there's this gap that's like, ooh, if I could just
mm.
bring in a few extra $100, that would be
Yeah,
huge for my family. Just need a little more
yeah.
breathing room.
That's a
And so
grocery bill nowadays, a couple $100s.
that's inflation for groceries,
Yeah.
right? Like that's what we need that money for. And
Yeah.
so you're right. On the one hand, being the household, the chief household officer, right? Like to call that the
Mhm.
CHO, that is
Mhm.
a more than full-time job. You are wearing so many hats. And so
Yeah.
finding the time to carve out to build a business is like, can I even do that? And the answer is you do it, you do it if you can make the time, if you can carve out the
Mhm.
time. And so I
Mhm.
remember in the beginning stages of my business, it's been almost 4 years now. I had 7 hours a week to work on my business. So I
Mhm.
got up at 5 a.m. before my kids were up. I do not like
Mm.
getting up early in the morning for the record, but that was when I couldn't talk, I couldn't do a lot of work with them. And I was trying to find that balance of, do I want to do work while I'm with them also? Like how I want to be where my feet are too, and be
Yeah.
full present. And so I
Mhm.
was getting up super early in the morning to work on what I call silver hours work. Your silver hours are like administrative work you can do.
Mhm.
It's not client facing, it's all the back end. And my
Yeah.
golden hours were the time that I am client facing, that I had
Mhm.
protected time to meet with clients and follow up with leads and all that. And so I had to find time for my silver hours, my golden hours. And it was, like I said in the beginning, probably 7 hours a week. And you just start with
Mm.
what you've got.
Yeah.
And I will say that having profit as a habit from day one is a total game changer for new business owners, because
Mm.
you absolutely cannot make the jump from what you were doing before to going all in on your business if the profit's not there. You can't just leave a full-time job if you can't replace your income.
Yeah.
So profit must be there as a habit from, if you can swing it from day one. That's what I
Yeah.
definitely help people do, is take their profit first and build the business around what's left, not the other way around.
Yeah, that's so important to kind of know how all of those pieces work. When we're talking about profit, we're talking about like your business has revenue and then your business has expenses that you get to claim as tax deductions, and whatever is left over is the profit. But with I have not taken like the profit first credentialings or anything. I understand the concept, but I'm not like a profit first accountant or professional or anything. But my understanding of the concept is like most people sit there and think, well, I'm making this much and I'm spending this much. So what's left over? But when we're considering profit first, or like you're talking about from day one, what do you want to be taking home? Like if you are the stay-at-home mom that thinks or wants to take home a couple of $100s a month to really help out with the grocery bills, childcare, car payments, all of that, how do we work backwards from that number? And why do we want to work backwards from that number? Why is that? I thought the only way was just like plus, minus, whatever's left over. If it's a positive number, is what I've got.
Yeah, and that's what I would say most business owners do, is they're like, all right, I gotta make money. And we rush into that part because like either we put startup capital in, we've got an
Mm,
investment here. We need to start making a return on our investment for this to be an actual business and not just a hobby. So we're
mm.
urgent to the money making part. But then we've also got expenses and we're urgent to that because the business needs to keep the doors open. And then
Yeah.
we're like, if there's something left over, great, I get to pay myself. I'll work on that over time and it'll
Golly
be
gee, I've got a couple
profitable.
$100.
Yeah, yeah. And so, but also like if we worked at an employer and we allowed them to pay us in that manner, that would be unacceptable, right? Like we
Hmm.
don't get the leftovers of the profit of the business. We get paid on payroll, like we get a
Hmm.
paycheck. And so
Hmm.
when we don't do that as business owners, though. We don't treat
Mm.
it in the same way. And so I make the argument that we should be doing that like from day one, even if it's tiny, but we need to establish guardrails to our
Mm.
business spending. We need to set up a flow to save ahead for taxes so that we don't get stressed out at tax time, right? We
Yeah.
need routines and habits in place from day one. And if you're listening to this and you're like, hey, I've been in business 5 years and I don't do any of that. It's way past day one, sister. That's okay too. That is
Uh-huh.
okay. There's
Hmm.
always a way to start to shift in the direction you want to
Hmm.
go with the right organization and structure.
Yeah, I agree completely. I hear some from folks who are like my colleagues, not necessarily my clients, but then I hear people who come to me for assistance and they're like, I don't know what to do. Like, I have a full-time job. I'm trying to work as much in my business as I can, but my business has expenses and I'm having to put my personal money into the business. Like, it doesn't make sense to pay myself. Like, it would just turn
Mhm.
around and I would just put it back into the business because Canva's coming due and my website domain needs to be renewed and just like all of those things that we can arguably need to have for a business to be operating. Like
Yeah.
some would say like you really don't need a website. Facebook is free, like all that. But what would you say to those folks that are like, yeah, I only put my personal money into the business. I'm not at a place that I can pay myself. Like how do we start to make that shift?
Yeah, the first question I would ask is, do you want this to be a business or do you want it to be a hobby? And by the way,
Mm.
there's no shame in wanting
Mm-hmm.
something to be a hobby, but if you're not profiting,
Mm-hmm.
and you're always taking money out of your personal account, you're not really profiting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so everyone has startup capital at some point. Like you pay for, I remember I paid for a financial coach training program. So I
Mm-hmm.
could learn how to coach people. That was
Mm-hmm.
my startup capital. After that point, I personally was committed to operating profitably from day one. All right,
Mm-hmm.
I'm only going to add in business expenses if the profit's there.
Mm.
I'm not going to add on. So I operated from a very minimalistic standpoint, just getting started. Company of One, a book by Paul Jarvis, that is one of my top favorite business books ever. He talks about this business minimalism.
Mm.
And so, yeah, so to anyone listening, do your expenses make sense right now for the season of business that you're in? If you
Mm.
are continually infusing personal funds into the business, that should be like a one-time, few-time thing and not an
Mm-hmm.
ongoing practice, because then that tells me that the business is not profitable and that your expenses are too high or there's just no money coming in. So I would
Mm-hmm.
take another look at your ongoing operating expenses and what needs to change in order to start becoming profitable.
Yeah. I always tell folks like, well, I'm not going to tell somebody what to do, but me personally, if I'm having to put money into my business to pay for the business expenses and to keep it operating, I would much rather just go make more money than even cut my expenses. Like,
Yeah.
I'm the gal that's like, all right, let's go talk to some of these leads. Let's go like reach out to my network. Let's make some direct offers. To me, that just
Yep.
sounds more fun and also like less constraining. Like, if I can
Yeah.
open up my revenue and my business income, that gives me more room. So does restricting your expenses, cutting down on that kind of stuff. But the making more money part sounds way more fun to me. So I
Yeah, you're
personally,
so right. There's two sides of the coin. It's not
yeah,
just about looking at your expenses, about looking at your income. And so having an abundance mindset into like, hey, all right, if the numbers aren't making sense over here, I gotta go make more money, or maybe
yeah,
I can do both. So I love that you pointed that
yeah.
out. There's really two sides of the coin.
Yeah, and there's so many ways that you can approach that as like I don't really want to call it a problem, but like maybe a puzzle to solve. Like what pieces can we kind of move around here to start making that shift? But
Yeah.
it's really important to have that mindset of like my business needs to support me financially. Like that's the point of the business, not only to serve my clients and like I have my mission and my vision statement that are like, you know, where I want the business to go, what kind of impact I want to have on the entrepreneurial community, but also like I got bills to pay. It costs money to
Yeah.
be here. So
Yeah.
like the
And taking a look
mortgage
at like
people.
what you want, what you need your take home pay to be is super important. Like
Yeah.
you had said before, reverse engineering it. Okay, what do I
Mm,
want or need to be bringing home for my family? And then,
mm,
there's certain percentages you can set up for yourself. Like, okay, I'm going to set aside 15% for taxes, or I want to pay myself 50% for my business, which is what I
Yeah.
help people do. Okay, great. If
Mhm.
I'm paying myself 50% for my business, then my take home pay, I need to double that. And that's how much revenue I need to make every month.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's and I love algebra. I'm a math girly. I love puzzles. So I'm
Mhm.
like, all right, if I've got a puzzle like that to solve, I can also step back from it emotionally that has anything to do with like my worth or value as a person or a business owner or an accountant, bookkeeper, whatever. Like it's just a puzzle to solve. It's just something that I can sit here and move some pieces around and work through it and figure out what are my options. And that sounds like more fun than uh telling myself that I'm not good enough or people don't want to hire me and like all of those
Yeah.
kind of mindset things that we can totally get stuck in sometimes that keeps us from making those good decisions.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah. And
help your clients with like mindset too?
absolutely, because part of, like you said, part of the equation is the income piece. So yeah, there are those moments where I'm working with someone, we're talking about the numbers, and they just have imposter syndrome, or oh, I couldn't charge that much, and or they don't think their service is worth that much, or their services are not diversified enough. It's like, hey, you could be providing this service right now. What do you think
Mm-hmm.
about that? And so yeah,
Mm.
definitely a lot of I won't say everything is mindset, but when you become a business owner, so much mindset work comes into play that needs to be done that
Yeah.
you never would have known if you hadn't started a business.
Yeah. And here's the thing that I think it might be helpful for people to kind of soak in is that, like, if you had like a funder or like an angel investor or some sort of capital funding that like wasn't your money that you didn't have to pay back, someone was just like, here's 100 grand, go start a business, you would still have to do the mindset shit even if
Yeah.
you had money to like front a business and like get it going and also pay yourself and like take care of yourself in the meantime while it became profitable, you would
Mhm.
still have the mindset work to do. Like that's so important to like take in and be like, all right, I want to start a business, but I recognize that I've got maybe some mindset things that need to be worked on either before I take that step, before I quit my job, or even during the process of like getting it up and going.
Yeah, there's mindset work, but there's also a big logistical learning curve I
Mm.
found.
Hmm.
Just wearing every single hat. And, it's one thing if you've like managed someone else's business
Hmm.
before, but then
Hmm.
really taking on all those roles, bookkeeper, marketer,
Yeah.
sales, customer service, like on and on, it's kind of a shock to the system, like what, oh, i
Yeah.
gotta i gotta be all the things. So there's
Yeah.
definitely a mindset work and logistical learning curve to contend with.
Yeah, I've had so many people that I've met that have like business degrees or master's degrees, and they're just like, I have no idea. Like, maybe know how all the pieces are supposed to play with each other, but being in that role, wearing all the different hats, most of us have had one, maybe two of those areas that we've worked in before, but all of a sudden, it's all incumbent on you. Even if you hire like a virtual assistant or somebody to help you with different pieces of that puzzle, it's still incumbent on you to make sure it gets done. Like the passing of the buck stops with you.
Yeah, every entrepreneur is they have their craft, and then they are the business owner, and they are
Hmm.
two totally separate things. And that's
Hmm.
why I think a lot of business owners struggle with the financial piece, because they're really good at their craft, whether it's a
Yeah.
product or a service, and now they're having to manage business finances. I've
Yeah.
worked with, or even personal finances, like I've worked with financial advisors who really needed help with their personal finances. It's like, you do finances for a living, but not really. They were doing investments and portfolios and stock management,
Mm.
which is
Hmm.
totally different from personal
Hmm.
finance. So,
Hmm.
it really is a different animal, like owning a business and doing your craft.
Yeah, totally. Can you tell us a little bit about what inspires you or what inspired your entrepreneurial journey? I mean, you've talked a little bit about being a stay-at-home mom and also wanting to like financially provide for your family. What inspires you? What does your day-to-day kind of look like in your business?
Yeah, what inspired me was I worked in retail coffee for 11 years, and
Mm.
a lot of that time was in management. So I had
That
run
sounds super fun.
other people's businesses, and
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I know. It just at that point the caffeine was just in my veins, right? Like
Just hook
I
me
just was
up.
always caffeinated and it didn't affect me at all after a time. Um and I once I had my second son, I had two under two, I decided
Mm,
to stay home and I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. We had lived in Southern California. We moved to Oregon and that gave us the financial means to have that choice. Southern
mm,
California is very much a dual income household kind of place to
yeah.
live.
Yeah.
And so we were blessed to have that option for me to stay home. And so I did for a year, but to be totally honest, I felt so drained by doing
Mm,
that. And I knew that the work was what I should be doing at the time, and my kids needed me, and that was precious time. But I
mm,
also feel like God had given me some gifts that I wasn't able to exercise and like serve
mm.
others with. And I just, I ultimately felt really unfulfilled on like doing one and not doing both. And I was like, I want to do both. I want to
Mm,
raise my babies and I want to serve people in a professional way and like use what I felt like gifts that were given to me to help other people. Um,
yeah.
and so yeah, so then I found out about, the training I did the training and yeah, I just really I was just so passionate about personal finance. And it's
Mm.
funny because I used to be like an out of control spender and didn't know what saving even meant. And so to
Uh-huh.
help, I could
What's
relate
a
to my
budget? I don't
so
know.
well. What's a budget? Yeah. Like my husband would joke that if I had 25 cents left in my bank account, I would take it out and get a gumball. Like I just had a hole burning in my pocket. Okay.
Mm,
So my mom still laughs to this day that I'm a financial coach. Like she just knows how I used to spend. And I think it makes me really qualified to help people.
uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
so my financial habits are much different these days. But yeah, I was motivated to serve others and to bring in income to my family. And we get to do so much because of my income these days, things that we wouldn't be able to do otherwise. So that's what I'm motivated by is just, using
Mm.
the gifts I feel like God's given me and serving my family too by bringing in income.
I love that. And I don't have children and I can't really relate to doing something that is necessary that you want to do like that, like childcare, which is skilled labor that
Mhm.
never stops. Like
Yeah.
you're 24/7 providing really a labor source
Yeah.
and then wanting to kind of like not only be present with your children and like take care of them and provide that just childcare and like homemaking and all of that, like it's a hard job. And then on top of that, I love that you wanted to serve other people too and find a way to kind of make both of those parts of you mesh and work together and have time for each so that you feel fulfilled, right? Because that's very important. And if you had two children under two, like, man, that is
Yeah.
like saturated with caring for them and just having to constantly be watching them. That's a big job. So I love that story that, you know, it was still a calling that you recognize you are a mother, you want to be there and be present for them, but you also have other things that you want to accomplish in your life.
Yeah.
What kind of like tips would you give to yourself 1 year, 5 years, 10 years ago? That I don't like to look back on the past with like any sort of regret, but maybe lessons learned. Like if I could have done something differently, what would I have done differently 5, 10 years ago?
Just in general or with the business or
Yeah, in general, or with the business or with the clients. I mean, anything that you can offer to the audience to like uh maybe repeat a lesson that they've already heard or drive a point home.
yeah, it's funny because when I ask myself that, like, what's my goal for the next 5 years? Like, when I take any 5 year period of my life at all, I'm like, and then look forward, I'm like, I never knew I was going to be there in 5 years,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
every single slice. And so it's just life is funny that way. But if I yeah, it's funny because I don't have regrets on how I've operated my business necessarily. I guess there is one lesson I learned. One time I invested in a program that was more money than I had spent on any business expense ever, really. and
Mm.
it promised a lot and underdelivered. And while I did
Mm.
learn a lot through that experience, it's so easy to emotionally spend in our business, and
Mm.
personally, right? Thinking that, oh, this is just going to be the thing that solves everything for me. And so I would caution people if they are having those feelings about a purchase, whether on the personal side or business side, to like get some accountability in your life and talk
Mm.
to someone else who you trust about it first, because you are in your own mind and you're isolated. While it could be a really good thing,
Mhm.
sometimes just things are just too good to be true, and like they're just
Yeah.
marketed so well, and like,
Yeah.
marketing is not evil. It's just we want to make a decision from a place where we have a solid financial foundation. And my choice, I compromised my financial foundation by making that
Mm.
decision. And I was really
Mhm.
ashamed of that. And
Mm.
so looking back, I'm like, it would have been better if I would have talked to more people about the decision, not made a decision in isolation, and reckon and ran different scenarios for myself how I could achieve a similar result in a less expensive way, or in a way that wouldn't at least compromise my financial foundation. So that's really one of the biggest lessons I've learned in business, in terms of
Yeah.
like something that I may have changed or wanted to go back and do
Mm.
differently. That would be it.
I appreciate you sharing that because regardless of whether we intend to move through life without regrets, there are going to be choices that we make when we look back and we're like, that could have been different.
Yeah.
And instead of like indulging in the shame about it, even after the fact, in the moment, like you said, we buy things emotionally. And this is something that I've got coached on from my sales coach. It's like people do buy a feeling that they want to have. Like
Yep.
they're spending money on your services or whatever value that you've communicated to them because they think it's going to make them feel differently. And there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that, but like I always try to make sure that I have like an informed audience or an informed person on the other end of a conversation with me so that like I want them to make a good choice for their business and for themselves personally that it has nothing to do with me really.
Yeah.
And what would you recommend for like before, during, or even after? Like, how do we find that sense of community as entrepreneurs? Because when we're solopreneurs, it can be a very isolated experience, like you're talking about. How do we find that community? How do we build that community with other entrepreneurs so that when we have those moments, or even after the moment we've made a decision, how can we lean on the support from that community to help us do better next time?
That's a great question, because you're so right. This work can be isolating when you're a solopreneur. I don't have coworkers right next to me, across the screen from me. And so, all the introverts might hate me for saying this. I am an introvert myself, but you need to go find it. You need to go
Yeah.
create your community and find your
Mm.
tribe and actively seek out that community. And I think it can be hard to make friends as adults. It is.
Mm.
I feel that. But here's one thing that I did. My city, it's a relatively small town, and we did not have any women's networking groups, like a
Mm.
women-owned businesses of my city group. And so I
Yeah.
just started one. Like I just rounded up some gals on Facebook and found some other business owners from other groups. And I was like, hey, do you guys want
Mm.
to meet up like once a month? We'll network, we'll have a little talk. Do you guys want to do that? And we've been meeting for like a year and a half now, and we've
Yeah.
grown. And I, yes, I hear all the introverts squirming when I'm talking about this, but you got to put yourself out there if you don't want to be lonely, and
Mm.
you're not meant to do this work alone. So go
Yeah.
out and start with finding one person to talk to. Ask if
Hmm.
you can meet on a regular basis with them, like just to talk business and encourage each other, talk shop, maybe once a month, but put yourself out there. That's how you do it. It's not just magically going to happen, probably.
Yeah, totally. I live in the South. I live in Louisiana, and there is at least one kind of women's business group that I'm aware of, but I'm like, not really my vibe."
Yeah.
It
And
can
and that's okay,
be.
because the gal that I co-created this group with, the Chamber of Commerce was not really her vibe, or like
Mm-hmm.
whatever it
Mm-hmm.
was she was a part of before. And she's like, I wish we could create this kind of, I'm like, hey, I want to create that group too. And so we co-created it together. So if there's something out there that's not your vibe, start your own group. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that because yeah, chances are what's out there might not be appealing to you. So what is, and then go do it.
Mm-hmm.
Easier said than done, but I did it and you
Yeah.
can.
I think if you approach it really with like a solid intention that you've examined and evaluated for yourself, like why do I want to start this? And then go into with that intention that you'll automatically kind of call in the people who share that, mission with you or who want that experience for themselves. And I agree, the chambers of commerce can be a little old and stuffy in a suit kind of like
Yeah.
vibes. Although there are like younger people coming up and, getting into those organizations and kind of revamping a little bit, but also like the internet exists, y'all. And like ever
Yeah.
since COVID, like we've all become so much more connected online, I feel. And even if you are in a small town or you don't know a lot of people who live around you who own businesses, like you can go online and find people very quickly who want to be a part of whatever it is that you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah, and make it how you like it. Like if you're starting a group, you get to call the shots. So like
Yeah.
we dress casually, we bring a snack and wine, and we
Yeah.
have a fun talk planned that everyone's actually really interested in hearing about, so make it your own
hmm
thing.
Yeah, bring the charcuterie board, like bring a
Yes.
bottle of wine, make it happen. What would you like to share with the audience, that would be like a practical tip or something that they can take home today to really start to shift their mindset, start to move towards taking home what they want to take home or being a profitable business, and share maybe a little bit about how your services and the coaching that you do can help people make that shift in their lives and their businesses.
Yeah, so if you've been listening to us and you're like, okay, that all sounds great, but on a practical level, like step by step, how do
Yeah.
I put something like this into place?
Yeah.
And I have created an online course, self-paced option to really start putting the structure in place for yourself.
hmm
And essentially, it's made of three main parts. The first part is like you need to stop commingling. It walks you through how to
hmm
unmingle. I know Reagan's excited
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. I love the
You need
separation
to,
of church and state and the
yes,
bookkeeping
unmingle.
separate.
So we walk you through how to do that.
hmm
What business bank accounts should you even have? We walk you through that.
hmm
Taking a look at your cash flow. There are so many business owners I talk to who don't know what they're making in 1 month or how much they're spending in 1 month. And
Yeah.
so gaining awareness into your habits is really important. The second main
Y'all
part of
know
the
that I agree with that message too. You got to
yes, yeah,
be aware of what's going on before you can make any choices.
exactly. And to the point of what we were talking about earlier in terms of accounting and bookkeeping and all that, this is different. This is budgeting. Like I help you
hmm
stay accounting is so important. I won't I want to underscore the importance of accounting and accurate record keeping for taxes and all that. Budgeting is going to help you stay aware all month long and not
hmm
just get to the end of the month and be like, oh crap, that all happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's really the heart behind what all this is on my end is daily money management.
hmm
And so part two, it's picking percentages to start setting aside for taxes, which you need to talk to your tax pro to know that number.
Yeah.
What you want to pay yourself, the guardrails you want to put around your business spending. We determine what those numbers should be. Because if we're not putting guardrails around any of those things, it's just a free for all, right? And then where we get to tax time and panic because we haven't set anything aside, or we realize that our business is a hobby because we haven't been paying ourselves and we're infusing it with personal money every
hmm
month. So we have to put, that's just the best word for it, guardrails into place.
Yeah.
Um, that starts with knowing what you've been doing and measuring that,
hmm
and then working
hmm
towards your ideal state too. Creating a business
Yeah.
budget for your expenses, that's super important. And then the last kind of main part to all this is establishing your new payday. Like, "Ooh, I'm going to pay myself now, pay
Yeah.
yourself. So you have all the accounts, you pay yourself, set aside money for taxes, put money into your expenses account. So you develop this new monthly routine where you are in control, which is so, so important. So that is called the Pay Yourself First Playbook, and that is my online self-paced course. Reagan, since you're having me on here, an idea popped into my head. Just for your listeners, I actually will, if they wanted to check out the course and enroll in the course, I will also include a one-on-one 1 hour setup call to
Awesome.
help them with their business budget, because there's so many questions and factors when you get going with putting the structure into place for yourself. And I know that can be hard if you're completely on your own doing this course and you're not really sure, like you might get stuck on something. So I'd love to be able to sit down and help you with the setup so that you can fly through this course and put this structure into place for yourself. So we'll include a link in the show notes to that. But that's really a step-by-step guide into how to put the structure in place for yourself for effective daily money management in your business to be more profitable, take home more money from your business into your pocket, and pay yourself first.
Establish a payday. Love to hear that. And I think the work that you do and the work that I do actually does mesh so well together because, like you said, you kind of have to know what you've been doing in order to make changes. And that is the work that I do, is like establishing that record of like what happened, what did you spend money on? And then you come over to Courtney and she's going to tell you, okay, we're going to we're going to put up these
Exactly.
guardrails. We're going to decide on a payday for you. And that is truly what it boils down to with business finances, is like knowing what's been going on in your business, establishing a plan and doing your best to stick with it, developing habits. And I love a good routine. So happy to hear that you help people establish a routine, because when we can get on those habits, I think it just winds up being so much easier, and it just becomes like you become a creature of habit. Like you're just not having to spend so much time thinking about those decisions when you have a plan in place.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can have the best intentions, you can set up this beautiful business budget, but if we don't know your historical data from accounting, from
Yeah.
bookkeeping, we can't make a realistic plan. So that is an
Mhm.
integral piece to this puzzle, is knowing
Yeah.
where you're starting so that you can turn the dial slightly into the direction you want to go, because we can't just say, all right, I'm going to start doing this, but you've been doing this for perhaps a decade, or like there's going to be
Yeah.
habits in there. So we need to be realistic about our starting point and then turn the dial in the direction you want to go over time.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing with our listeners the opportunity not only to sign up for your course, but providing them the access to get a call with you. That's really great. And I love that. And go ahead and share anything else you want listeners to know, like where we can come find you and follow you and be in your orbit and see all of that you've got going on.
Yeah, so I hang out mostly on Instagram. That's where you're going to find me. My handle is Cortney.Kaveh, and it's Cortney without a U dot Kav as in Victor, EH. And then my website is northwestmoneycoaching.com. So that's where you can find me.
Amazing. And we'll have all of her links in the show notes. Go get signed up for her course and get on a call with her if you need to seriously change up your money habits in your business. Thank you,
Thanks,
Courtney,
Reagan.
so much for being on the episode.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Money Through Ease. If you found value in today's discussion, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and leave a rating and review. Your feedback really does mean a lot to me. And if you're ready to take the first step towards organized finances, be sure to download my free receipt organization guide, Chaos to Calm. Visit the link in the show notes to grab your free copy now. Remember, your financial journey starts with small steps. I'm here to support you every step of the way. Until next time, this is Reagan Bashara from Money Through Ease. Stay empowered.